Hey, what's up, fam? It's Coach Ryan Patrick. Today I want to talk about shoulder health and why some of the most popular exercises that you're using might actually contribute to worsening symptoms when it comes to maintaining the integrity of your shoulder throughout the season. Now, this started because one of my athletes was approached by another trainer. Just by happenstance, they bumped into each other. And he brought him into his gym and said, I want to show you a couple things. And he's showing him the band pull apart, which if you've been in the game like me for a while, this hit me right in the 2004s. This used to be a really popular exercise. There was a time when we as an industry would say we need to do 2 pulls for every push to maintain shoulder health. But as we found out, and we just kind of got back to a pretty simplistic view of anatomy, this is not necessarily the case. And so I want to talk about why this can be really misleading and what you should be able to do instead. So number one, the band pull apart. You guys have seen this exercise. I'm sure a lot of baseball guys love it. But we have to look at the scapula. And so I have my friend here, Count Scapula. He is a right shoulder blade. So as I'm pulling this band apart, what's happening is the shoulder blade on the back side of my body is actually pinching closer to my spine. And so a lot of the musculature that connects from my spine to the scap gets really tight. Now, this is important because what we need to maintain optimal health and what we start to see a lot of guys lose is the ability to raise their arm overhead. And what happens when you lift your arm, that scapula actually has to turn and orient upwards so that the socket where the ball of your humeral head sits, you can actually get into the slot. And so if we constantly work on these rhomboids, these muscles between the shoulder blades that pull them back, these are actually very powerful downward rotators. And so we create a lot of concentric orientation or just tension through this area that's going to limit your ability to get up overhead. And this is going to cause massive problems for you. So that is the number one reason why we don't like this exercise. So the second thing I want to talk about has to do with the shape of the rib cage itself. So I show the shoulder blade, coming in, we do this band pull apart and the shoulders coming in, but we have to appreciate that the rib cage is kind of this round surface. And so as my shoulder's coming around and I'm pulling it back, it's not just sliding closer to my spine, it's actually rotating around this rib cage. And you can see the relationship of this socket to where the arm bone is going to change. Now, this can lead to some changes in the pressure gradient within the joint itself that may restrict motion in one direction or the other, depending on if we make a secondary compensation to overcome this limitation. And so what happens is overall, we're going to lose some range of motion at the shoulder. And if you're a baseball guy, one of the most important things is to maintain the total arc of available shoulder rotation. Now, baseball guys might be shifted to bias a little bit more external rotation so they can get that layback, but we don't want to lose the total arc because that's one of the best indicators of shoulder health throughout the season. Last thing, especially when we get a lot of bilateral contraction, where we're squeezing those muscles simultaneously on both sides, what you can see is that my chest is actually driving forward. And so what I do is I completely flatten out the backside of my rib cage. And I just talked in the previous point about how it's supposed to be rounded. But imagine if I have a balloon and I squeeze one side of it, it's going to push pressure into all the other areas. And what happens is this area where I'm squeezing, which would be the backside of my body, I get this very flat thoracic spine. And so my upper back is no longer the shape that it should be to allow the scap to move freely. So if you look at the inside of this scap, there's a slight curvature to this. And that's because the scapula should rest on a rib cage that has a slight curvature as well. And this is going to optimize all the length tension relationships in this muscle, meaning there are 17 muscles that attach to the scap. And if we tighten one too much, the way that all these other muscles attach is going to be modified as well. And so we want to maintain the congruency of the rib cage to the scap so that we can optimize our shoulder mechanics. When you do a bunch of band pull aparts, we flatten this out and we actually ruin the capacity we have to achieve full shoulder range of motion. So that's 3 reasons we don't like this. And I'll follow up later with a few exercises that we feel are like better bang for your buck that can still hit some of the muscles on the backside and maintain the integrity of your shoulder throughout the season. Thanks for watching.